Om Shanti. Let's start with a few minutes of meditation. Sit still and quiet and realize what expecting from people and things have done to us. We have moved with this idea that people, places, and things will fulfill us from within. Just sit in realization what that idea has done to us. Now that Baba has come, he has given the awareness that I am a soul. Gently unplug from everything and everyone you are attached to. And come to the awareness I am a soul, just a point of light, seated behind the eyes. I'm only this much, a point. I came as a point. I will leave as a point. I am this blissful, eternal point of divine light. I have all relationships with God Himself, who is always there with me. He is there when I wake up. He is there when I sleep. He is there when I eat. I have infinite access to Baba. I am always surrounded by His grace, His love, His peace. Just become aware of this. I am a soul, always surrounded by Baba's love and grace. He is giving me the light of knowledge, which is clearing all doubts. He is giving me the light of purity, which is finishing all influences and dependencies. Just sit still and know that He's there. Plug into Him and access Him. Om Shanti. So, in English, there is this expression, be still and know that I am here. So, this is the expression used by God. So, just like you see, there are millions of events going on around you right now. But are you experiencing all those millions of events? You are only experiencing those events which you focus on, right? So, when you focus on one event, you start experiencing that. For example, right now in the room next to the room you're sitting in, a lot is going on. In the world outside, there are lots of things going on. But what are you experiencing? That which you are plugged into. And supposedly that is the class. It may not be so. But if you are focused on the class, then you might be experiencing the class. If you are focused on my voice, you might be experiencing the meditation that I conducted. So it is all about where you plug in your attention and energy. And just like every second of the day, there are so many things going on around you. At every second of the day, you also have access to God's love, knowledge, purity, peace. Because the soul has a natural connection with God. You belong to God, right? So, as soon as you unplug from everything, you are oriented there. You don't have to do anything to orient yourself there. You have to disorient yourself from here because you are naturally oriented towards Him. So as soon as I take off my attention from everything else, I get connected with Him and I start feeling His love, peace, purity, everything. So this is the exercise that you need to conduct very often. Now, I can give you a very simple example of this. So, does anybody teach you how to sleep? No. Okay. So whenever we are taught to sleep, if at all, so we are told now you stop thinking about everything else and just go to sleep, just go to sleep. And then as soon as you unplug from here, you go into that realm. Yes, so in sleep, you experience the alpha states or the delta states or the beta states, which are all calmer states of mind. So when you are unplugged from the body, you naturally plug into that dimension. So the soul has natural access to the world of peace, world of silence, to God's world, but only when you unplug from here. And the problem is earlier we used to unplug when we went to sleep. Nowadays we don't even do that because we sleep with the phone. So earlier we used to at least finish everything and there was a thought that okay, the work is done today and I'm going to retire now and then start tomorrow. So there was a programming of moving from the day's chores to sleep. But nowadays, we don't take that break and we take the phone and we keep looking at it or watching something, and then we are trying to sleep. So we are not unplugging well. That is why the recharging is not happening and people are not getting this quality and quantity of sleep that they should. Right? So it is not about where to plug in, it is more about unplugging. All right, so this is what. Now, today I want to talk about how God comes and gives this knowledge. So, first of all, you see, there is this law of entropy working in the world, which science takes cognizance of. And if I put the law of entropy very simply, it means that everything will become old from new. So time is such a powerful force that everything moves from an organized to a disorganized state, or everything becomes old with time. This is by basically the law of entropy. So of course there are various complicated ways of putting it, but this is what it simply means. And have you seen in the world, you don't require to put in any effort to make something old. So a car is manufactured and you just take it out of the showroom, and within a month it is old. And then you build a house, it takes 10 years for it to get old. So getting old or getting unorganized or moving to a place of chaos is very easy because time does that to you. So with time, everything becomes or unorganized or chaotic or old. This is the law of entropy. Now, in this world also, we are all moving from new to old every day. Everything is getting old. Now, even if the scientists will tell you that we are evolving, if you look at the reality around you, it doesn't look like that, because everything is getting more chaotic, more unorganized, and we are not evolving in any way. So, I would like you to think about this thing. See, some years back, you used to have a guarantee on whatever you bought. Nowadays, there is a warranty, not a guarantee. Now, warranty means I can't guarantee this will work, but I'll give you a new one if it doesn't work. So, because there is no guarantee anything will work. Earlier, you got married, they said you got married for 7 births. Now there is a 7-year itch. So you can't get married, you can't stay happily married for 7 years and more. So there is a 7-year itch. So we don't talk about 7 births of marriage, we talk about 7-year itch these days. So everything is getting more temporary, more chaotic, and more, disintegrated. So there is a force of disintegration and not a force of something that is constructive or building successfully on each other. And if you look at science, so there is this thing about science that science is making everything better, and there is evolution and there is technology. But if you look at the efforts of science, all efforts of science are counterproductive. So you are trying to beat the heat with the AC and the refrigerator, and the AC and the refrigerator are precisely adding to the heat through the greenhouse effect. So what you are using to lower the heat in your room is adding to the heat in the world. So I don't think if it's a good idea. And then you are trying to purify your water using the RO, which wastes most of the water. So I don't think if that is solving the problem. So and the medicines you eat are giving rise to other diseases. So there is so much of there are so many medicines that have come up, and we are all consuming that, and we think that it is ensuring health. But I would ask you to think about whether health would be better represented by a picture of a medicine bag, or fruits, vegetables, or exercise. So, if you think health should be represented by good food, good thought, and good exercise, but then when you talk about the health ministry, you think about the medicines and the hospitals. You don't think about food, health, and exercise. So, this is something. So, our all our approach to various things is very skewed, or I don't know whether it is in the right direction, because we life is getting easier with the use of machines, but then the lethargy and the wasteful thinking, and because of too much of time in our hand, the areas in which our energy and thinking is getting directed is giving rise to a lot of problems. So, this is how life is functioning. So, basically, we are all moving from Kalyug to greater Kalyug or Ghor Kalyug. It is not becoming better day by day, it is getting worse day by day. And just like, in science, you use, in economics, we use this a lot. So, I have been an economics student, so we use these extrapolation methods, or reverse regression or something. So you just, whatever the trend you see right now, if you just extend it backwards, you can come to a conclusion of how it was earlier. So if things are getting worse and worse with every passing day, then we can assume that some years earlier it was better and better. Yes, and if you think of a time when 30 years back, which most of us on the screen have seen, so you understand that that time was much better than the times we are in today. So, by going by that logic, if I say 5,000 years back it was heaven on earth, it is not too much of a exaggeration. It could be so, because you see, Christ came 2000 years back, and he said that 3000 years before Christ there was paradise. So it is said in Christianity that 3000 years before Christ there was paradise. And so Shiv Baba also tells us that 5,000 years from today, there was paradise on earth. So everything was in a very organized state. We were internally very organized. Things were externally very organized. And when we say paradise, it is not something out of the world. It is this world in perfect order. So, when you think of all the things that you wish for in this world today, they were all there. So, so you were in sync with people and with nature. Okay, so when I say paradise, it is very simple for you to understand paradise with one word, which is harmony. So, right now, there is disharmony in everything and everyone. So, I and you may be in disharmonious state. Now, we are trying to build that harmony, but generally, what happens is people are not in harmony with each other, and you are not in harmony with situations and things. So, when you want it to be cold, it is hot. When you want it to be hot, it is cold. Or when it is cold, you want it to be hot. Or when it is hot, you want it to be cold. So what you want and what is not matching. So there is everything in the world, but the timing is not okay. So that is what is happening. So when you want to talk, you have nobody around, and when you want to keep quiet, there are too many people talking too much. So that is the problem we are facing these days. So it is disharmony. And when I say paradise, paradise also has everything. But the only thing is, in paradise, everything is in sync or in harmony with everything else. So in paradise, when you want somebody to talk, they talk, and or they talk and you want them to talk at the same time. So both the things are in perfect wavelength, so you like it. So when you want to go out, the other person also wants to go out. When you want to sit back and relax, the other person also wants to sit back and relax. So this is about paradise. And when you want it to rain, it rains. When you want the weather to be pleasant, it is pleasant. So this is the kind of synchronization or harmony that I'm talking about when I say paradise. And basically, when you come into harmony now, you go back to paradise. So all this thing about acceptance, not resisting, respecting what is being told and taught, and is you are being conditioned into it by Shiv Baba, because basically Kalyug means lack of harmony and Satyug means harmony. So when you start getting in sync with everything, so suppose, have you heard of the expression go with the flow? So what does go with the flow mean? Go with the flow means that, I will tell you the origin of this expression. So when there is a flowing river and you insert your hand in that river and you try to move your hand with the flow of the river, then the speed of the movement of your hand and that of the water of the river has to be in perfect harmony. If you move your hand faster, then ripples will be formed. If you move your hand slower, ripples will be formed. But if you just move your hand at the same speed with the flow of the river, then it is a very smooth flow. So that is called go with the flow. So what Baba is precisely teaching you is go with the flow. So if somebody is lying, you enjoy that lie. You don't want him to be honest. If somebody, now you also use this expression, this person is too honest and I don't like it. Yes, so, or too much information this person gives you. So then when somebody is giving you too much information, being too honest, enjoy that. Okay, when something is going the so don't expect anything in advance. Just move with whatever is happening, and from moment to moment take your decision about what is the best thing to do right now. Okay, so the problem arises when you want something too badly and that's not happening. So I will tell you one thing. When I started doing my first job, so I was very young at that time. So uh, I had this idea of summer holidays, and I didn't know that life in a job is different from life in a college. And I thought that is an extended version of college. So when I went for that job, so I was posted in a place which was 200 kilometers from my hometown. So I had to go back and forth on the weekends. So what I used to do is I used to pack my bag and take it on Friday to office. And then at 3 o'clock or 3:30, I had a train. So I would take that train and come home on Friday, and then Monday I will go back to office. So so the person who was the boss in that office observed this for 2 3 weeks, and he also knew that I'm homesick and I'm new to the job. So he had all his empathy for me. So then what he did one day is He called me at 3 o'clock in the evening and he told me, "You can't go home today." So on a Friday, he called me, and then I was so upset and I almost started crying. And I said, "Why can't I go home today? Today is Friday. I always go home on Friday." So he said, "No, there are people visiting from the zonal office, and you can't go home today. And you have to sit here up to 6. You can go wherever you want after 6, but you are not leaving right now." So I was very upset. And then I almost cried and I sat there with a bad mood. And then he came to me after 15 minutes, just in time for my train. And then he told me, "You go." So I said, "So people from zonal office will be visiting." So he said, "No, nobody is visiting today. What I want you to learn is you can't expect to go home every Friday in advance. So you can go home, but you can't do that. I want you to be happy about being allowed to go home on Fridays if you are allowed to, and not be upset about it if you are stopped from doing that. So it is, you are having a privilege when you leave at 3. This is a privilege you are enjoying, but you are not enjoying that privilege. You have thought of it as your right. And now you are not happy about enjoying it. That is a very ordinary thing for you. But when you are stopped from it, you are so upset and almost mad at me. So, this is not how you approach life. Got it? So, you don't expect anything in advance. You come on a Friday, you ask me at 2:30 whether you can leave, and until then, you have to be open to yes and no. And then at 3, if I say yes, you be happy about it and go. And if I say no, you know that duty is calling and you sit. So this was my first lesson in professional life that he gave me. And from then on, every Friday was a happy moment, because I came to know that I'm using a privilege and something is going my way, and it made me happy rather than upset as I was in this one time. So you see what expectations do to you. So, when we expect that everything will go my way and this is how it is supposed to go, and it is my right that this should go this way, then it doesn't give you any joy, because only your that expectation, which was very obvious to be fulfilled, is getting fulfilled. But then, if you don't move with expectations, you just go with the flow. Every second by second, you know it could go either way. But yes, I hope that it goes this way. And then, when it goes that way, you enjoy that moment. So, you ask, when you are talking to somebody and that person is being nice to you don't take it for granted. You know that that person could have talked to you anyway, but then now that they are nice to you, it's a good thing and you appreciate it. So this go with the flow is very important if you want to rule out the tendency to take for granted, and also the tendency to be disappointed by the design of things. So things and people always go the way they are supposed to go. They don't go otherwise. So we use this expression that it went otherwise, but nothing goes otherwise. They always go the way they are meant to go. But we feel happy or unhappy depending on whether we expect everything to comply in advance and then be thankless about it when it does, or get disappointed about it when it doesn't. So, Baba is basically teaching us to go with the flow, second by second. So he's saying that any person could be any way, because they are mind, intellect, acquired sanskar and original sanskar. But if they are going your way and they are being nice to you and peaceful and happy and loveful in conversation, then be thankful about it. And if situations are being your way, then have gratitude about it. And this gratitude will attract better situations, better people into your life. So this is about moving from disharmony to harmony. So we were in a state of harmony some 5,000 years back. Then we moved to a state of disharmony because of these vices, this attachment, expectation, and other stuff that creeped in. And in an earlier session, I told you how the energy of the soul gets depleted because it comes into motion. And because there is depletion, so just like when the sun is not there, darkness creeps in, so these vices also come in, and then it becomes chaotic and disharmonious. Now, I told you that God doesn't create the world or operate the world. So, what God does is, at the end of Kali Yuga, He creates Satyug. So, because from Satyug to Kali Yuga, we don't need anybody. We are very good at creating Kali Yuga from Satyug. So I am reminded of a joke, and in that joke, it's a very old joke, and probably in the time of George Bush, they said that Bush offered Laluji that if you give me Bihar for 6 months, I will convert it into America. So then Laluji said, "You give me America for 1 month, I will convert it into Bihar." So you don't need time to to move from a place of organized state to a disorganized state. It is very easy, and we are very good at it. Any person can do it. So we are from Satyug to Kalyug, we are very adept at it. We create it nicely, but we don't know what to do with our own creation when Kalyug is here. So then God comes and tells you how to create Satyug from Kalyug by creating this consciousness of harmony, or looking at everybody irrespective of their body as a soul, and not expecting but accepting them as they are. And I will also like to tell you, like, it is not, this acceptance is not what you are hearing of for the first time. So earlier in life also you must have heard many lectures about accepting, but that why I say God had to come and teach you this is because consciousness, attitude, perspective, and behavior, there are four things. There is consciousness, there is attitude, there is perspective, and there is behavior. Now, you cannot bring about a change in behavior if there is no shift in consciousness. Okay, so if at all there has to be a shift in behavior, it has to come by a shift in consciousness and a resultant shift in attitude, perspective, and behavior. All right, now suppose you are rude to me someday, and I carry that memory in my head, and my consciousness about you is you are a rude person. And then somebody tells me, "Oh, why can't you be empathetic towards them, or why can't you just have good thoughts about them?" I would say, "No, you can try having good thoughts for that rude fellow, but I can't have it, because that person is absolutely rude and nothing in the world can change it." But if you tell me that you know why that person was rude, because he had lost this thing in the morning, and then this thing happened after that, and because of that he was really upset and he was not able to control it, and he's very sorry about his behavior. So then next time when I meet you, I can shift my attitude towards you because my consciousness has shifted. So, without a shift in the consciousness, attitude, and perspective, you cannot have a direct change in behavior. So, there is a difference between bhakti and gyan. So, up until now, also, we heard about what to do and what not to do. Okay, so what to do and what not to do is about bhakti, it's about behavior. So everybody, every shastra, every teaching will tell you, you should do this, you shouldn't do this. You act like this, you shouldn't act like this. So, but then you don't have the shift in consciousness. You can't do it even if you know it is the right thing to do. Now, when God comes, He shifts our consciousness with regard to souls. He shifts our consciousness with regard to the whole design around us. So, we are gradually putting all the pieces of the puzzle together and trying to understand how it is really. So earlier you used to think that this is my father and this father betrayed me, and then you want to forgive your father, but you cannot forgive your father for betraying you. But when you know he is a soul and he's a weak soul, and weak souls perform bad actions and it is okay, and he may be in a role of your father, but you could be in a bigger role although you are in a smaller body because you are a soul, and the size of the body, the age of the body, or the gender of the body, or the role of the body is not directly related to how you operate in this world. So when you shift your consciousness, then you can shift your attitude, you can shift your perspective, and you can shift your behavior, and whatever you do many times will become your sanskar. So only when you change your behavior as a resultant change in consciousness, then you are able to change your sanskar. And from a Kalyugi sanskar, you can shift to a Satyugi sanskar. And when the sanskar shifts, the sansar shifts. So there are three words. There is sanskar, there is sanskriti, and there is sansar. So when the sanskar shifts, I shift my sanskar and you operate with me, then you are operating, you look at me and you also get influenced. So we together create a new culture. Okay. And when we create a new culture, then slowly other people pick on it and the world starts changing. So I will tell you one thing. When I started wearing sari in office, then there was one director I had, and he started calling me Behenji suddenly. So earlier he used to call me by name, but then he said, I can't call you by name anymore. So he started calling me Behenji. And then everybody started calling me sister thereon. So this became a culture, and then slowly I noticed that brother and sister became a language there. So nobody minded if you call the boss bhai. So this is what I mean when sanskar changes, sanskriti changes, and then slowly the world starts changing. So this is a gradual process. So now, for all this, for giving you this new attitude, for giving you this new consciousness, God has to come. You have heard about this word sankalp se srishti. So a thought creates a new world. So a new thought, or rather a new consciousness, creates a new world. So this new consciousness is brought by Shiv Baba from the soul world, because he doesn't have a body, so he never becomes body conscious. So he can teach you about how to not think of yourself as a body, because he knows how it is to be not a body. And we in the body can't learn ourselves how to not think of ourselves as a body. So then he has to come. Now how he comes is, now you have to think about God's predicament. So God has this big problem how he can come. He doesn't have a body, and you hear through the ears, so he has to speak through the mouth. If he doesn't speak to you like this, you can't get anything that he's saying. I have been speaking to you for the last so many days, and I have tried in every way to get that message across, and only 20% of it gets across anyway. Right? So for God to send the message across, he can't just do something inside your brain and you get it. That's not the way it works, because he's pulling you into a dimension which you have not operated in for very long, so you've lost complete memory of it, and pulling you into that dimension is not a small task. So he has to teach you. Now you see, in the Gita, we hear it is Bhagwanu Vach. So, what is Bhagwanu Vach? So, God speaks. Bhagwanu Vach means God speaks. So, God has to come and speak. Now, in the Gita, if you look at the Gita very closely, the Gita gives you an idea about how God comes. Now, one thing you should know is that God is not a human, or he doesn't have a body like a human. So, the way God is projected in the Gita as Sri Krishna, and totally, in all his attire and all his aura and all his perfection. So if God looked like that, then he wouldn't have to sermonize the Gita. You would automatically know this is God and you would belong to him. So God doesn't come like that. God comes a little covered, a little hidden. That is why in the Gita it is said, "Koto mein koi and koi mein bhi koi mujhe pehnchante hain." Now if God looked like God, then you wouldn't have to recognize him. So this question of recognition wouldn't arise. And this, if God looked like the way Sri Krishna is portrayed in Gita, then he wouldn't have to tell you the Gita in order to convince that he is God. You would just know he is God by the way he looks. So, and then people said that when Gops and Gopis used to run after Sri Krishna, then their family members used to get angry. But if God looked like Sri Krishna, nobody would get angry if you hankered after him. So basically, when we read the Gita, so it is about God, but the portrayal is very body conscious. So we gave God a perfect body, jabki he doesn't have a perfect body. So he takes, so when you read the Gita, it is said that there was one Rath. So if you see the Rath stands for the body. So when somebody dies, you say Arathi. So Arathi means the Rath devoid of the Rathi. So when you see the Gita, there is one Rath, which means there is one body. And the body belonged to Arjun. Okay, so Arjun means Arjan karne wala, the one who imbibes. So all of this is symbolic. So there is a human being who will imbibe everything that God gives. And it is in his body that God becomes the charioteer. So there are 5 horses in that Rath. So 5 horses are the 5 sense organs. And then they have a conversation inside the Rath. So basically, how God comes is, there is a body that belongs to somebody. So just like your body belongs to you, the soul, so there is a body which belongs to one soul, and that God enters that body, and 2 souls sit in one body and have a conversation with each other in that body. So that is the symbolism of Gita. Now, in Gita, it is written that I come to destroy all religions and establish one religion. Now, if God came in Dwapar Yuga, as professed by Gita, And then Kali Yuga came after that. Then where was the promise of one religion? So after Dwapar Yuga came Kali Yuga. So instead of creating one religion, the religions multiplied. So basically, God doesn't come in Dwapar Yuga. God comes at the end of Kali Yuga, which is now, and then he establishes Sat Yuga, which is one religion, by entering the body of somebody who will do as he says and imbibe whatever he gives as an idea. And then these two people have a conversation, and that is the Gita Gyan. And through that Gyan, we will all shift our consciousness and arrive at a new consciousness which will create Satyug. Now, what you are listening to in these sessions has been delivered in this manner. So, the body in which Shiv Baba came belonged to a human being, and there is a human soul who participates with God in this task of world transformation. All right. Now, when that human being participates with God in this act of world transformation, this human being is called Brahma. Why Brahma? You know that in every religion, you look at every religion around you, there is the mention of a God who is the light or the Noor or the Prakash. And then there is a mention of Brahma as Adam or Adam or Brahma. So in Christianity, you will call him Adam. In Islam, you will call him Adam. And in Hinduism, you will call him Brahma. But then there is a human being who operates with God. And I will tell you something. In Shiv Mahapuran, I had not come across Shiv Mahapuran until after I came to Gyan. So when I came into Gyan and I had started teaching and giving lessons, then one day we went. It was monsoons, and I went to a temple, Shiv temple. And because they saw me in this white dress, they thought that I could conduct the part for them that day. So they just made me sit down and handed me over the Shiv Mahapuran. And they said that, Didi, now that you are here, why don't you read this out to us? So I said, all right. So I said, kahan tak padha hai? So then they pointed out ki we have read up to this. So then when I opened the page, I was so startled that it was written, Shiv Mahapuran is written in the first person. So मैं. So it is written, मैं ब्रह्मा को सृष्टि के रचना की जिम्मेवारी सौंपता हूँ, और जब वो इस कार्य में असमर्थ रहते हैं तो स्वयं उनके ललाट में प्रवेश कर नई सृष्टि का निर्माण करता हूँ. तो ललाट means this place. So just like I told you, two souls sit here and talk, and through that the new consciousness is delivered. So this is exactly what is written in Shiv Mahapuran. And in Islam it is written, आदम को खुदा मत कहो, आदम खुदा नहीं, लेकिन खुदा के नूर से आदम जुदा नहीं. So Adam is not God, but the Noor of God. So the light of God enters Adam. So this is who we call Brahma, or the first person. And this act of creation doesn't happen in some other world. So Brahma is a human being in this world. And I will send you a picture of Brahma Baba and Shiv Baba today. So Shiv Baba is the point of light, and Brahma Baba is the human body in which Shiv Baba enters, and those two souls have a conversation, and this Gyan is delivered. And if you look at the picture of Brahma in Bhakti, have you ever wondered that every other deity is shown to be young and dynamic and very nicely like dressed and everything, but only Brahma is depicted as old and having gray hair and gray mustache. And so it always made me wonder why Brahma is so old. So Brahma is a character in Kali Yuga. So that is why he has all these Kalyugi signs of age and gray hair and everything. So there is a person in Kalyug who participates in this act of God's creation. So that is why always you hear Brahma Dwara Sthapana. It is not Shri Krishna Dwara Sthapana. It is Brahma Dwara Sthapana, because Sthapana not of the world, creation not of the world, but in the end of Kali Yuga, God enters the body of Brahma and establishes Satyug by giving you the input of Satyugi consciousness through Brahma's mouth. Now, if you look at this act of conversation, it is very interesting. Now you see, you are a soul. You think whatever is there in your buddhi, and then you express it through the mouth, right? You think first and then you talk. When you talk, do you have to listen to what you are saying? No, because you already know what you are saying. Because you, the soul, create the thought and then it is only expressed through the mouth. Now, if there is another soul using the same apparatus, so that soul is thinking, speaking through your mouth, and you are hearing through these ears. So just like I and you can have a conversation, two souls in one body can also have a conversation. Right? So one soul creates the thought, expresses it through that same body, and the other soul sitting here hears through that same apparatus, same body. So this is what you mean when you say, Ek rath mein Sarthi Bhagwan bane, and Arjun ka rath tha, and they had a conversation, and this Gita Gyan was given. All right, so I will send you a video about the life of Brahma also, so you can go through it. And this is how the Gyan gets delivered. I will talk about why Brahma, why this particular person, not you or me. Would you like to be that person? What if God entered? Would you like to be that person? Okay, so first you hear the story of Brahma, about what Brahma did. Then you have to ask yourself a question: could I have done it better? Okay, so, and also I will give you a reason why Brahma, why not somebody else, and why you, and why me. So just like God chose Brahma, he chose you and me also. Albeit he didn't enter our body, but he is choosing us for his task nevertheless. So he is choosing us and teaching us how to use our mind, how to use our speech for the creation of a new world. So just like he chose Brahma, he chose all of us. So what is special about you and me, and what is special about Brahma, we will come to know tomorrow. And we will also come to know one thing, which is there are souls which are more special than others. So not everybody is equal, because everybody is unique. So you are different from the other souls around you probably, and what is special about you needs to be known to you so that you can realize your speciality and access it. All right, Om Shanti. I will send you all the links. You can go through that. Let me take up questions. Okay. Jesus, Buddha, Dharmatma. I couldn't get, then who are they? So I will talk about this Dharmatma and all, but now you know that who is Brahma, and who we will know who are you. So you are a Devatma. We will come to know tomorrow. Then you will have more clarity about who a Dharmatma is and all. Okay. Okay, the Rita Ben was not getting the voice, but I couldn't have helped you because that's about your audio setting. Okay. Are you guiding us? You are guiding us daily how to meditate after the session. Yes. So I am not. Okay. Okay. If you have a mentor who taught you some life lessons in your life, and then when you meet that person, she just showing off to you and says lies, then what do? So you stop thinking of them as your mentor. So I will tell you one thing. I have realized that we suffer from two problems: the problem of underestimating people and the problem of overestimating people. Okay, so sometimes you underestimate somebody and say, oh, this is a nothing and they don't know anything and they are good for nothing. And then sometimes you overestimate, okay, this is a divine soul and a great soul and this and that. And then you suffer in both the cases. So you should know that every soul is just a soul and they're allowed to be however they want to be. And if you give them that permission, you free yourself from this disappointment and game of expectation and disappointment. Okay. So, so earth will always be present. Yes. Yes. So this earth is always there. There is only high entropy and low entropy, and nothing vanishes. So I told you Ajar Amar Avinashi. So all the three things are always there. Souls, matter, and God are always there. It's just that they are in high consciousness or low consciousness according to time. Okay. How to become serious in life? You don't need to be serious in life. Okay. You need to be very light, but you need to take responsibility. And if you break that word responsibility, it means the ability to respond. Okay, so you should be able to respond to everything properly. So if there is someone around you, just take care you respond well to them. If there is a situation around you, respond with dignity, with grace, and with a certain sense of connection and responsibility towards them. So this is all you need to do. You just have to respond to life okay. Otherwise, you don't have to take life seriously. That day you mentioned everything can be bifurcated into three things: matter, souls, and God. What about vacuum and light? So, light is also matter, light is also part of matter, energy, physical energy. And about vacuum, I don't know if there is actually any vacuum, because even when there is a vacuum, there could be a soul present in that vacuum. So even if there is no matter in that vacuum, there could be a soul in that vacuum. Why souls take even the first birth here? You told that we have 84 births. We will talk about this 84 birth cycle properly so that you can put it into place. How to be peaceful, how to make peace with life. Can you give one example? Okay. So peace starts with acceptance and respect. Okay. So I could be very disturbed about some people coming late. I could be very disturbed about some people not switching on their video. But what I do is I create acceptance and respect. Respect about their choice in life, and acceptance about the fact that even I can choose how to be with you, but I cannot dictate how you need to be with me. So, this is acceptance. So, you have to accept the fact that you can control how you choose to be with somebody, but you cannot control or dictate how they choose to be with you. So, you have to accept how they choose to be with you and respect that. And that is the beginning of peace. Okay. I'm not able to come out of my fear. If my father in law is at home, I don't feel comfortable, even though he's a nice person. So, This is about your conditioning that he should never get upset with you. So there is a certain conditioning in us that elder people should never get upset with you. So you should train yourself and tell yourself that I can only do my best, but I cannot stop anybody or ensure anybody from getting upset or not getting upset. Okay, so they will feel the way they choose to feel, and it has got nothing to do with me. So I conducted this session about our conditioning, that when other people feel a certain way, it's about us, and when we feel a certain way, it is about other people. So you have to reprogram yourself and tell continuously that I can do as much as I can do, and I'm doing it to the best of my ability. And if you find there is a problem with that, correct that. But if somebody is not happy, there is no way I can make that person happy. So you have to train yourself into this, and you have to talk to yourself based on gyan. So we are always talking to ourselves, but based on conventional morality, we always have a conversation with ourselves. Now you start talking to yourself, having a conversation with yourself based on gyan. Okay. If someone is pushing us in life or profession, should we respond and take him to task as it is causing problem in life? Yes. You have to always calculate what are the pros and cons, and there will always be consequences. But if in your calculation those consequences can be handled, you should take that person to task, and you should try to create a favorable environment for yourself. Okay. Tried but could not meditate. So meditation is nothing. See, you are always thinking, right? And thoughts are giving rise to feelings. And when you think consciously and you think in a manner which gives rise to a stream of thoughts which lead you to peaceful feelings, that is meditation. So meditation, at the end of meditation, you want to feel peaceful, so you think peacefully. That is meditation. We make meditation a big deal. That's why we say it's difficult to meditate. So you just create these thoughts about who you are, what are your powers, what are your abilities. And it is said smriti se samarthi. So when you remind yourself, those abilities come to your access, and then you start feeling them. So meditation is not rocket science. It is very easy. Okay. We are going to have a session on food. Can you? So food, I don't know whether I, I will try to arrange somebody who can talk to you about food, because I don't know a lot about food science. We can only talk. I can talk about what kind of food we recommend in yagya. So based on the sattvic, rajasic, tamasic thing. But I will. Okay, I will try. Okay. How was human body created and when? So human body is nothing. Human body is all of nature packed into a bag. So if you look at the body, so the body has 5 elements, and nature also has 5 elements, and in exactly the same ratio as in nature. So your body has 70% water, nature also has 70% water. So it is just all of nature packed in one bag. That is your body. So that is why the body doesn't take time to disintegrate and mix in nature, because it is in the same proportion. It is that same nature just packed into a bag. Okay, so and in the womb the body is formed. Okay, and the soul enters the body in approximately when the body is 3 months in the womb. So that is the time you say the first movement comes about, quickening. So that quickening is when the soul enters the body. So it's just like your body creates tumors and all of other things. Similarly, it creates in the womb, there is a body created, and then the soul enters the body, and then there is life, and then the child develops. Okay. Om Shanti. Let's meditate. Just look at yourself stationed behind the eyes. You are sitting in this body at this point of time. Just look at your consciousness right now. Sometimes I think I'm a fearful person. Sometimes I think of myself as burdened. I mostly operate in low consciousness. But I am much more than my present consciousness and my present context. In a different time, I belonged to a different context and had a different consciousness. Just remind yourself you lived in a world of harmony. You had no vices. You were absolutely pure and divine. Remember that time. Just like you remember that something that happened 30 years back. Remember what happened 5,000 years back. You were in this world where everything was in harmony with everything else. Nature was at its best. Every soul was kind and loveful. You lived like a deity, very pure, very powerful feelings. You are that person. You have that part of you hidden inside somewhere. Just try to access it. During the day, try to operate with your purity, with your peace, with kindness and compassion. Don't give in to feelings of low consciousness. Sit with these thoughts for some time. Shanti.